Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. And this is Tristan, he's a Corgi, and this is an episode of Conversations with a Corgi from the garden, where we are continuing our talk about flower essences. And today we are discussing one of the botanical animal flower essences called OBSESS Less. And OBSESS Less, as it says, is for compulsive behavior, self-destruction, and chewing. And when we look at some of the other write-up about OBSESS Less, we'll see more information. OBSESS Less calms the tendency towards obsessive-compulsive behavior for incidences of self-destruction, self-mutilation, cribbing, chewing, licking, scratching, and plucking of feathers without cause. Addresses issues of self-loathing, frustration, boredom, and feeling unclean. For when obsessive and repetitive behavior loses its original intent and becomes a habit, a bad habit, and it sometimes is impossible for an animal or a person to break out of a habit that has become so ingrained in their life. For instance, I have a friend who washes his hands every hour on the hour, and he can't stop doing it. So OBSESS Less would be a good thing for him. And we see many of these obsessive behaviors in our animals, and OBSESS Less flower essence can help address that. There are not tremendous numbers of flower essences combined in this blend, but the ones that are in it are very powerful. And in OBSESS Less we have horse chestnut, European crabapple, the purple monkey flower, not the yellow monkey flower, the red horse chestnut, and the scarlet willow. So notice again, we have a lot of interesting colors in these plants. The purple monkey flower, connection to the higher self, connection with the spiritual realm. The red horse chestnut and the scarlet willow connect with the root and base chakras, connect with the earth, find grounding, find that spiritual awareness from a grounded place. And that is so hard sometimes for animals who are obsessed. So the first one we're going to look at that is in OBSESS Less is the horse chestnut. The horse chestnut has tiny white flowers, and as I said before, it's native to the Balkans, and it has been used for centuries for vascular disease, and it is not the only flower in this blend that has been used to increase blood circulation. It has been used for kidney stones, hemorrhoids, venous insufficiency, and it has strong antioxidant properties. And again, increasing that circulation, increasing the flow, getting things moving. Because when you're obsessed, you're stagnant, you're not moving. So the horse chestnut helps address that. It's for those who can't prevent thoughts and ideas that they do not desire from entering their own minds. So, for instance, your horse might be cribbing, chewing, and sucking on wood, and you may go over and scold him or stop him or redirect him, and then it's in his head that he needs to do this. So he turns around and immediately starts doing it again, even though he knows you told him not to, and he understands that you don't want him to do it, and he doesn't always enjoy doing it, although there is some component with cribbing that is chemical. So anyway, they can't stop this behavior. It's for those who when are not connected to the present moment. They're obsessed with something that's running on the hamster wheel in their mind, and they can't get out of it, and so they are obsessed with that, which usually for many of the flower essences in OBSESS Less is tied to feelings of self-loathing, and that's what's going on in the hamster wheel in the head. So these animals are really suffering because they just feel terrible about themselves, and they're also being destructive to themselves and usually others. Horse chestnut, white horse chestnut, is for continual thoughts of worry, circular thoughts that are mental torture and that drive out peace and interfere with your ability to do work or find pleasure. So again, with that stall weaving behavior we see, or the cribbing behavior, or with your dog, the obsessive chewing on a paw where there was maybe some issue years ago, and now he just is obsessed with licking that spot on his paw. And that's part of this mental torture of being on this hamster wheel and not being able to get off, of feeling the need to chew, or crib or stall weave. So the horse chestnut, the white horse chestnut, will increase calm thoughts and meditative states so that the person or animal can hear the soul messages about their soul purpose and why they're here. And many of the flower essences and Obsess Less have to do with being turned off to your soul messages and being just wrapped up in yourself and your own negative thoughts. And so you cannot find your higher purpose and you cannot accept responsibility. This horse chestnut, the white horse chestnut, is also for mental congestion, again, running on that hamster wheel. And it's also been used for headaches. And it's really important to help regain calm. So the white horse chestnut is an important component of Obsess Less because it's going to stop some of that mental treadmill that is running in circles of negative thoughts. And what else is in Obsess Less? The European crabapple. And crabapples are a tiny little fruit that has also been associated with increasing blood flow, and they are astringent and have also been used as a laxative. Again, that idea of getting back in the flow. When you need a laxative, you're clogged up in your intestines, and so crabapples have been used for that for centuries. They've also been used as a poultice for wounds on the skin. And part of this is, you need to have what they call a thick skin to get through criticism from others. And perhaps the crabapple's component of being useful for skin irritation helps you get a thicker skin so that when someone says, I don't like how you did that, it doesn't become a personal assault on you. It's really about a dialogue with what they said and what you feel, and being able to have the strength to stand on your own 2 feet, which a lot of animals that have obsessed problems are not able to stand alone on their own 2 feet. The bark of the European crabapple is cooling and soporific, which means sleep-inducing. And I still remember a wonderful Beatrice Potter story about the many little bunnies, the Flopsy bunnies, and they are found circled under a lettuce, and it says on the picture, lettuces are soporific, and all the little bunnies are sleeping because just like people in a turkey coma on Thanksgiving, they are resting after eating too much lettuce. So European crabapple bark has also had that same property. It has been used for fevers. The leaves have a very strong antibacterial property. And of course, we know crab apples and apples as useful for making jellies and preserves and jams due to the component of pectin, which is a great thing in the apple that helps it make the jam get thick. And it's way better than a lot of other things they put in pet foods these days to make thickening. So, and the apples, crab apples and other apples, are best harvested after the first frost. And that's why we associate them with the autumn. The leaves of crab apples are especially delicious, used for tea, and I've had crab apple tea, and it is quite tasty. As a flower essence, the crab apple is for those who are unable to see the big picture. They are lost. It's that typical idea of can't see the forest for the trees. They are obsessed with one small thing they can't get their mind off of, and so they lose track of what's going on in the world around them. And that one thing may be something that catches their attention or something that they have been focused on for a long time, like that dog licking that same spot on his paw for years, or a horse who cribs particularly in one spot, and all they can think about is cribbing in that spot, or stall weaving. Many horses, as soon as you put them in the stall, if they're stall weavers, they start stall weaving. And I've actually had the interesting experience of seeing a horse who was rescued and in just not very good situations for a couple of years. And when she finally came to her current home, and they finally got a stall built just for her, she began stall weaving almost instantly. And it's interesting, having known her now for only a couple of months, how that's developed so quickly into this obsessive, what was just kind of running back and forth and wanting to get out, has turned into this really obsessive stall weaving, which is really bad for your horse. So this horse, I know, would really benefit from Obsess Less. So also we see with European crabapple, a lot of people that need it have excessive hand washing and a desire for purity. They're over concerned with cleanliness and infection and fear for their health, which is interesting because crabapple has also been used as a cold remedy. And it's also useful to counteract the effects of pharmaceuticals and after a hangover. So it really is a cleanser in a literal way for your inner and outer being, and in a flower essence, emotional, spiritual way, it also, crabapple, promotes inner and outer cleansing. And then a balance for the inner and outer being. It's for those who have feelings of self-disgust and despondency and who feel unclean. It restores a sense of proportion to decrease habits that are unwholesome, like cribbing, chewing, and stall weaving. And so you can see crabapple is a really important component of Obsess Less, because everything about that helps stop that negative circle of, I have to do this behavior, I have to do this behavior, and helps animals get in touch with the whole world around them. Maybe the horse stall weaving, and I've seen her, she's got two buddies standing right next to her. It's not like she's lonely and locked in. The front of the barn is completely open. She has no actual physical reason to be stall weaving other than some emotional issue, probably from the time when she was living in her rescue situations, and even before that, perhaps she was at a kill place or something like that, and so she has a fear of being locked in. And so helping her get over that, a flower essence would be really useful, in particular Obsess Less. The other aspect of Obsess Less is the purple monkey flower. And the purple monkey flower is quite different from the yellow monkey flower, but it also has some of the same properties, one of which is connecting your earthly self with your higher self so that you can get information from your higher self so that you are not wrapped up in things like stall weaving and biting your leg. Purple monkey flower brings inner calm so that when you're facing a spiritual or psychic phenomenon, you can find the courage to trust your own spiritual experience. And purple monkey flower in particular has a bit of a component for facing religious, sex, cultism, things like that, where you have where you become obsessed with someone else's view of religion in lieu of finding your own spiritual intelligence. So purple monkey flower helps those who are fear-based rather than love-based. And I used to have a bumper sticker on my car that said, "Love is greater than fear." And when people say, what is the opposite of love, they usually say hate. But in fact, many spiritualists believe that fear is the opposite of love, because hate, you know how you have something like you love hate it. Like sometimes I feel that way about yoga. Like it hurts my body, but it's so good for me. So I love hate it some days. But fear is very different. In fear, in a state of fear, either chronic fear that the world is a bad place for you, or literal fear in the moment, like when you hear something outside your house and you're concerned. Those kinds of fear block out all other emotions to the point where you become obsessive and you cannot experience love. So the purple monkey flower that will bring in love rather than fear-based spirituality is a really important part of Obsess Less. It's for those who have a fear of a spiritual experience, who fear connecting with their higher self. It's almost like, I don't want to know who I really am because it's going to be worse than what I think. And so I'm just going to keep chewing my foot and not worry about it. People who need the purple monkey flower have a fear of retribution if they depart from the conventions of family or community, particularly in a religious sense. So again, that horse that's been chewing the fence, he is so afraid of what's going to happen if he goes out into the pasture with the other horses that it can't even occur to him to leave that fence. And I've worked with horses like this before I knew all the things I know now to help them. And honestly, I've had really good success helping horses stop cribbing. But, we used to just take them out into the pasture with the other horses and give them some grain and say, look, you're safe. It's great out here. And as soon as you took the lead line off of the halter, that horse would tear back to the fence to start chewing again. And that is a perfect example of an animal that could benefit from Obsess Less and who's caught in that negative emotional state and that dependency on their habit so that they can't transform into a different place. It addresses the purple monkey flower fear in the soul. It's beneficial for those who need security and safety so desperately that they cling to a particular habit like that stall weaving or chewing. It's to help animals and people find inner guidance instead of outer conventions, and for those who have an extreme fear of going astray. So that dog that's chewing on his leg may have been scolded for chewing on the furniture at some point, and you haven't scolded him for chewing on his leg or something, and so that's what he's going to do. Or it could have just started with, and this gets to some of the other remedies or flower essences that are in this blend. The dog that's chewing on his leg may have actually had a little wound there, maybe from a thorn running in the woods or a bug bite or something, and they just became obsessed with that thing, and they cannot stop licking their leg 2 years later when the original cause is long gone. And part of that is that they lack that grounding and that higher connection the purple monkey flower is going to help them find. Purple monkey flower is for those who are paranoid or have hallucinations and have a profound fear of the spiritual world. It helps to gain one's own authentic experience of encountering spiritual phenomenon in a calm and conscious manner. So connecting with your higher self is really important to stop this habitual obsessive behavior that we see in these animals. Purple monkey flower helps the soul find true spiritual guidance and true courage. And so that's going to combat that idea of fear and allow love to come into the animal's life so that they can stop doing what they're doing. Okay, the next component in Obsess Less is the red horse chestnut, and this is different from the white horse chestnut, which we talked about earlier. Those who are anxious around others need the red horse chestnut. It's for excessive worry about others. You know, the people, like many of us have, the joke was typically a mother-in-law or somebody like that who is so worried and wrapped up, or the nosy neighbor, in the concerns of others that their own world is falling down and they don't even notice it. So they are so worried. It's almost like the dog that's biting his leg. He's so worried about that leg that he hasn't noticed that, you know, he's got a really sore back knee or something going on. And so all they can think about is that one thing, or the concern for all of the people and things around them, but no self-concern. And the red horse chestnut in particular is for those who obsess over concern for others. And it's that idea of one little thing, like, oh, my back was a little sore today. Someone who needs red horse chestnut, who knows that person, will say, oh, that's it. They have cancer. They're going to die. They're going to need surgery. It's going to go awful. It's going to be like what happened to my neighbor when they had to surgery and they couldn't walk for 6 months. And they still aren't better. They should have never done it. Oh, my God. You know, it's that kind of worry for others that the red horse chestnut addresses. It's for those who have need a reminder that love and sympathy is what others need, not worry. You know, it's much better to say, I love you and I'm concerned for you. And that would be your dog, you know, if he has another injury in his body, giving up on licking that front leg and saying, oh gosh, I need to lick my toe here. It has a little, you know, stiffness in it from when we had our long walk this morning. So that applies to other animals as well. And with the horse, you know, maybe they need to get exercise and eat instead of cribbing and stall weaving all day. It's for those who don't learn from their past mistakes, the red horse chestnut is, and it helps decrease that constant worry for others and that over-attachment that they may have with others. And I had 2 horses, one of whom was a cribber and the other one wasn't. And if I ever separated them, these were not my personal horses, they were client horses. If I ever separated them, the cribbing one usually, I would take away from the other one, and he would just go mental. I mean, he was so upset. He would whinny, he would throw himself against the stall door, he would kick and bite and paw at any barrier, a rope. And if that horse was out of his sight for even a second, he went nuts. And that's an example in the animal world of over concern for others. And boy, we were really worried about him when that other horse died, and did a lot of spiritual work with him to help him through that process. And he really needed it. He was really, really, really overly concerned with that other horse. And that is an example of an animal that needs obsessed less. And since his buddy was a cribber, we could have just put some of this in their water and made them both a lot happier during their time together. The last component in Obsess Less is the scarlet willow. And this is a little different than the other willow that we talked about in some of the other flower essences. Scarlet willow, like other willows, soothes tension and increases vitality and unblocks constrictions in the physical, nervous, or emotional energy. So if you've got that emotional energy wrapped up in chewing your leg or chewing and cribbing and, you know, biting at the stall, the scarlet willow will help break that up. It's for those who are experiencing self-pity. This is a component in a lot of obsessive behaviors, this idea of self-pity. And for those who are resentful to the point of others' cheerfulness, that they try to interfere with that. And so, you'll see a horse that's obsessed with maybe guarding where the salt block is, and he won't let any other horses near it. And he's obsessed with guarding the salt block to the point where he does not go out in the pasture with the other horses. And the same for a dog. They may be so obsessed with one thing that they like to chew that they won't let you or any other animal near it. And so they become really defensive and interfere with the happiness of others. And often the scarlet willow is for those who are unhappy and not comfortable with their own self, and they have inner feelings that are powerfully projected onto the world around you. So, that idea of cribbing and chewing and stall weaving is very destructive to the environment. So the inner feelings of self-pity, worthlessness, lack of love, over-concern for others or being with others, like the horse stall weaving, all of that is very destructive on the environment, to the point where the animals doing it don't even know that they've chewed their way through the fence, and now they're chewing on the second rail because the first rail is gone, and they've had to change their obsessive behavior. Scarlet willow is for those who are demanding and critical of others, who tend to feel bitter and isolated and hold grudges for a long time. Again, that idea of stagnation. Every flower essence in Obsess Less increases blood flow, increases flow throughout the body, in the nervous system, the emotional system, the spiritual system. And so that obsessive behavior is a symptom of stagnation. And of course, acupuncture has been really useful for any animal I've had that has had this obsessive behavior. And acupuncture is another way to move stagnation through the system. Often, animals and people that need scarlet willow will, quote, emit clouds of toxic energy, a sense of being a victim who does not see personal responsibility in their own failures. And we all know those people, there's probably more of them around than we actually recognize, but who emit that toxic energy of blaming everyone for their own problems and not seeing the lessons in their problems and not seeing their role in creating those problems. I mean, there really is a whole school of thought in spirituality of you create your reality, you create what's around you, and that goes for our animals too. I mean, why is one puppy from a litter happy and thriving who went through horrible, horrible situations when they were rescued, and another one is obsessively biting and interfering with the other dogs in the house and not really bonding with the person? We all, even animals, have a way of resolving our conflict in our lives, and some of us handle it better than others. So it's important to have the scarlet willow to help the animal find responsibility for what's going on with them. Oh my God, I've been biting my foot for a year. Oh my gosh, no wonder I can't walk. No wonder my opposite back leg is sore. No wonder my person is always yelling at me. And, and animals can really do a lot of destruction. The horses can cost you lots of money with stall weaving, trying to rebuild the bottom of the stall up and, resituate the posts in the ground. So the scarlet willow helps connect with the higher self. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim who doesn't understand your personal responsibilities and you're out of touch with your higher self, that scarlet willow, again, that color of grounding and also royalty, will help bring you back into connection with your higher self and help change your inner thoughts to decrease blaming the world around you. And scarlet willow in particular will help you see the positive aspects of life, to see everything in a positive light, to always see the glass half full. And animals that are obsessing, the stall weaving and the cribbing, for instance, those animals are only concerned with what they're doing, and they don't see the big picture. They don't see the beautiful pasture where they live. They don't see the nice dinners that come every day. They don't see the great horses that they get to spend time with. And so the scarlet willow will help them see the positive things in their environment and get out of that constant obsessive behavior, and take responsibility for their own destiny. And the last aspect of the scarlet willow is that it helps bring the ability to find joy in life. Because again, when you have this obsessive behavior as an animal, you are not experiencing joy in your world. You're just really wrapped up in the hamster wheel of thoughts of destruction and self-pity and isolation and feeling of worthlessness, not feeling worthy. So Today we have been talking about a botanical animal flower essence called OBSESS Less. And it has really powerful healing properties of the 6 or 7 flower essences that are in it. It is for compulsive behavior, self-destruction, and chewing. And then the deeper description adds that it calms a tendency towards obsessive compulsive behavior for incidences of self-destruction, self-mutilation, cribbing, chewing, licking, scratching, plucking feathers without cause. For people who have parrots and birds, these flower essences are very gentle. They are not contraindicated in any situation or for any animal because they are homeopathic. They are very dilute. So if you have a parrot who has been plucking his feathers, and this does happen, parrots in particular, and sometimes cockatiels and cockatoos, they are very emotionally sensitive and they can begin feather plucking as part of their obsessive behavior. And the OBSESS Less added to their water just a tiny bit will really, really help them because they are such sensitive, energetic creatures. So if you do have a bird with a feather plucking problem, or a cat, I've known cats who had issues related to having kittens. And so I've known adult female cats to completely defuzz their tummy, even though they've been spayed and living somewhere for 10 years, because maybe they heard wild kittens mewing outside, or maybe the person brought a new kitten into the house, and the cat will begin doing what a mother cat would do, pulling the fur from her stomach, and then just become obsessed with that. So again, that kind of behavior with the feather plucking is really self-destructive and dangerous for the animal. So the OBSESS Less can really help them in a gentle way. It addresses issues of self-loathing, frustration, boredom, and feeling unclean. And my poor dog Comet, who I rescued from a crate when he was 6 months old and he couldn't stand up or turn around in it, and he was up to his paws in poo and food and urine and everything. He could have been a dog that needed OBSESS Less because he did feel unclean. He didn't know what clean was to know that he was unclean. So OBSESS Less might have been helpful for him if he didn't have the attitude he had. He was very outgoing and happy, and he really, more than any dog I've had, accepted responsibility for all kinds of things. And of course, being a herding dog, he's prone to accepting responsibility. So OBSESS Less is for those animals who may have come from a terrible rescue situation where they weren't kept clean, and so now they're obsessed with cleanliness. For obsessive and repetitive behavior, when it loses its original intent and becomes a habit, just like cribbing. So OBSESS Less is a great flower essence to have in your arsenal, especially if you work with lots of different animals or if you have some rescued animals, because it is so powerful for things that are really difficult to work with otherwise. Certainly the work I do, craniosacral therapy and Tellington T-Touch, and there are many, many Tellington T-Touch practitioners around the world, that kind of work goes into the central nervous system and really can make a shift that, along with OBSESS Less, can really help your animal stop this kind of behavior that is so uncomfortable for them and for you. So this has been Sally Morgan with another episode of Conversations with a Corgi. And we are going to be finishing up our flower essence talks this week. We have 1 or 2 more to do, and we're going to talk about rescue remedy as well. And then I think what we'll move on to, I think Sunday will be the day we talk about dog altruism and the new research. And then next week we're going to work on chakras, and we'll look at the chakras in the body, because a lot of the work I do relates to the chakras, and it's important to have an understanding of the chakras and their importance with your dog, or your horse or your kitty or your bunny or your bird. So I think that's where we'll go next. So this has been Sally Morgan and Tristan Corgi for another episode of Conversations with a Corgi. And we will be celebrating our 100th episode, even though we passed it already, at some point soon when we have time to have a little party. Everybody have a great day. It's still raining in New England. I had to wait for it to stop raining again today to be outside. One day we'll have sunshine. Thank you, Wendy Weatherwax, for joining us. You inspired me. It's a wet corgi. It's a wet corgi. Have a great day. Bye-bye, everyone.